I love that you all kind of touched on having grace with yourself. And I think that ties into imposter syndrome, and when you feel out of place in a space that you so want to be in, that you pay to be in. And when you talked about grace, I'll start for myself, like how to navigate imposter syndrome moments where you felt like, can I do this? I know for me, when I gave myself permission to like make mistakes. I remember I did that once at Columbia, you know, perpetually late. I was late one day, everything was perfect. I had my food and, you know, I was like on time. It was gonna take me 2 hours to get there. But, you know, it was like, I'm already late, but I'm 2 hours before. I'm 2 hours ahead of where I need to be, but I'm late now. Even though everything, I'm looking at it, it's like my food. But I was like, you know, you're gonna mess up every day. I remember that moment so clearly. Like, you're gonna mess up every day. And I was like, it's fine. It's like, did you expect perfection today? What are you talking about? So I think that's one thing that gets me. And then even in the clinical environment, I remember the beginning of third year, it was very hard for me. Just trying to assess where do I fit as a student, as a Black woman in the medical field, like, where do I fit here? What am I supposed to be doing? You know, I studied, but like where? And I remember when I gave myself permission to make a mistake again, I was like, you need to mess up. All this perfection is not working for you. I was like, go in here and mess up. So then my motto became, let's make a mistake today. We're not hurting patients, but just, you know, the mistake in answering a question wrong or trying something and, all right, you could do that differently. I know that's helped me with imposter syndrome. How have you all navigated that?
Imposter syndrome is real. Hopefully you don't have to go through it, but a lot of us do. And for me, it kind of happened when I first came to med school. I was kind of like the cream of the crop at Xavier, Indigo was as well. And then you come to the University of Rochester and you have people from all walks of life who are very intelligent. And it's kind of like the Hunger Games, you know. You're battling it out first year. And so for me, I think it was very tough because I had never been in that position academically. And so like Indigo said, you know, like it's okay to make mistakes. If you weren't gonna make a mistake, then there would be no reason to come to med school. It's just gonna happen. It's just a part of life. And I think recognizing that and recognizing that it's okay to have imposter syndrome is important.
I think that also surrounding yourself with people who understand that feeling and who can help you navigate those feelings. Like earlier today, I was talking to my mentor, Dr. Gellin, and even as a fourth-year medical student, the first thing that she could tell when I walked into her office to talk about how to apply to residency and how to become a great applicant, the first thing was I didn't feel like I was good enough or that I had enough research under my belt or that I had enough extracurriculars. And so I feel like surrounding yourself with people who recognize that you're awesome and who will also recognize what imposter syndrome is and will kind of help lift you up when you feel like you're not doing as much as you can or when you're comparing yourself to your classmates. I think it's super helpful. They'll ground you. They'll help bring you back to the space that makes you feel safe. And that'll be a reminder of, you know, why you're here and why you're trying to accomplish your goals and how you can.
Yeah, I think for me, because we all deal with our doubts of imposter syndrome, it's like just recognizing like, who is it that I'm actually trying to be, right? Like, you know, it's like, what is this image of like perfection that I'm like striving to be? And then taking a step back and saying like, but who am I, right? Because as soon as you start trying to be like someone else, then you chip away at like what makes you unique, right? And what makes you you, and then that in itself is like taking away from the fabric, the overall fabric of like what makes you an asset, right? Because if we all were the same, then like it'd be boring and we're not really contributing anything. So I think that really helps me, and then having people who check me is so important because sometimes I'm like, I'm not doing what I need to do, right? And like that's why I'm feeling bad. And so having people who are like, okay, reassess, go back to the drawing board, stop doing this, start doing this, and then see what happens. But then other people in my life who are like, you're wonderful, like, you know, like you've tried really hard, like no one just accepts people to med school. Like that's not a thing that happens, like you need to be qualified. And don't forget that, right? Because it's like both a financial investment on your part, but also from the institution standpoint. So just kind of reminding myself, and like really some of these people here in their own ways have like encouraged me, and so I'm sad that y'all are leaving, but
Some of us are.
I know, but like, you know, leaving the med school, but having people who can like just like lift you up is important.
I think self-worth is a huge thing that comes into this conversation too. And if I can remember two things, one, Dalton and I, another one of our student leaders for Bridge, we talked about just the feeling of, you know, being out of place, feeling out of place, often in a clinical space, but, you know, it could be beyond that too. And I remember telling him that I have to remember that in another room, you know, people love me, care for me, they believe in me, they saw me when I was at the bottom, and they've also seen my finest moments. Like, there's another room outside the space where I'm at currently where, I don't know, you can get that perspective. And then it was funny for like match day and whatnot. It was like I recognized that room with my family there. People who saw me ugly cry for good reasons, bad reasons, and now they're here for this moment. So that was one thing that came up for me with imposter syndrome. I can't remember the other one, self-worth wise, but self-worth is huge. Any other additions to that one?
I think just it's really important that we don't compare ourselves to anyone else, and I think that is like the crux of imposter syndrome. I think just, you know, for our undergraduate students who are trying to go to medical school, that there are so many people with such different lived experiences, and there's no like cookie cutter, this is a med student. So like Claire, one of our classmates, was a PhD and taught organic chemistry before coming to medical school. We had someone else who was on Wall Street and was a banker. Other people worked as teachers or came right in from undergrad. And they all did amazing things, and just things that they were passionate about, but not everyone checked off all the same boxes. And then when you get into medical school, we talked a lot earlier about all the different resources that exist. And, you know, maybe you're studying one way and you're using one resource, and then someone else is using another one, and they start talking about it, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing the right thing. Why am I just not doing what everyone else is doing? And I think it's just so important to only talk about yourself positively and to remind yourself of your values and really, you know, why you're here.
Stay in your lane.